And when I look down my list of front pages, it is literally Andrew. India, take us through the Times front page to kick things off then.
Yes, so a lot of the front pages are focusing on Andrew being set to be taken off the line of succession. He is currently 8th in line to the throne. This was going to be the natural progression of the story. He was released yesterday, and he was released after 12 hours in police custody, and it's difficult because when you think about how the monarchy works, obviously the event that he actually is going to be needed...
Highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
This is more of a sort of public appetite thing. So I think it's sort of the anger that is spilling over about his conduct, about his ties with Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, he's been stripped of everything. Obviously, now he's under investigation for potential public misconduct in public office, which Thames Valley Police are still looking into. And there is, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how wide-ranging this investigation is going to be, who is going to be brought into it. We know also his royal protection officers are likely to be questioned as well, staff in the royal household. It might be a long while before we know the conclusion. But based on the Epstein files and what journalists have seen and trawled through, there are emails from his address, and they're always very clearly signed, from his address, that suggested he did share confidential information while he was trade envoy. It's not looking good. I think most people are saying the monarchy is in mortal peril right now, or showing its steel, kind of depending on who you ask, because obviously the king did take action before this arrest took place.
Yeah.
This was just going to be, the natural progression, as I said, so we'll see.
My question is, do we think this is a way of the government and perhaps inadvertently, the Crown, trying to pressure Andrew into doing it voluntarily? So we saw that with Mandelson when it came to his peerage. They said they were going to legislate to get rid of everything. Yeah. He ended up doing it voluntarily.
Or retiring, yeah.
Exactly. So, is there a world maybe where that happens and actually this is not necessarily needed if Andrew decides to do that?
So my understanding is that it does need an Act of Parliament to go through,
right.
And the King actually has nothing to do with it. Of course, he'll lend his support. He will defer to what Number 10 wants to do. He has always said in the past he didn't want to waste parliamentarians' time on this, which I think is fair enough because, as we mentioned, the event that he will be called upon to step up to the plate is basically impossible. And he won't also act as a councillor of state as well because he's not a working royal. So is it a waste of time or is it necessary? Again, I think Number 10 will be guided by the public mood.
There seems to be an appetite for this, Zoe, if the Daily Express is to be believed on their front page.
Yeah, so the Daily Express is reporting that 82% of the public want Andrew to be cut from the line of succession, which raises the question about what the other 18% are thinking, in my opinion. It's quite a vast majority. And after the headlines and the embarrassment of the royal family, whichever way you come at it, whether you're a fan of the monarchy or whether you're a Republican, I think everyone can agree this has been hugely testing. Considering that the government talking about potentially drafting this legislation or putting forward this legislation to remove him from the line of succession, if you look at it from a purely political perspective, this is an easy win for the government. It might be technically time-consuming, but clearly the public is on side with this.
Let's focus on the easy win for the government because we've seen the SNP this week saying, hang on a minute, we should have been debating this stuff in October, around then, and you didn't want to do it. Now, obviously, the Epstein files have since dropped and that changes everything, but is the government going to have to backpedal a little bit? They want these easy wins around this topic.
I think so. I think although the public have always been fairly clear on this, I do think there is an understanding that actually this was previously hugely embarrassing, but was a royal matter, and they kind of actually, the pressure was on maybe the King to act on this. And I think there was an understanding that there is that necessary separation sometimes between government and the royals. But now I think the story has moved on so much, as you say, with the Epstein files, with Peter Mandelson, his resignation as well from the House of Lords. I think what we're seeing is actually this real increased appetite for, no, something has to be done now and we need to draw a clear line in the sand. You can kind of understand that it could be a waste of parliamentary time, but I think some voters would say there's a lot of stuff that wastes parliamentary time, and actually, when it comes to our royal family and the line of succession, this should take priority.
Now, I was just going to add that, based off of your question, I think the government has been reticent in the past to dig into members of the royal family. I think that's understood now. And actually, I think questions are being asked about how they're held to account and how much everybody knew about this and how much was swept under the rug because maybe police forces or the government or the palace sort of wanted to turn a blind eye. You know, there's been a lot of discussion about the late Queen also, Andrew being a blind spot for her.
Well, a favourite.
A favourite, exactly, because we have known about his association fears. Obviously, she was acting more on the evidence that she had at the time, but I do think there is a sense of the public feeling, well, this is all, it wasn't very proactive. It was all sort of a bit reactive and happened a bit too late.
Yeah.
Now, in The Guardian, Zoe, they're talking about expanding this inquiry, talking to his former protection officers, reviewing records of flights at London airports. I mean, how wide does this go?
Yeah, so the British National Police Chiefs Council is helping to coordinate this huge piece of work, which now involves 8, I think I read 9 actually in another paper, but The Guardian's reporting 8 different forces investigating Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And that is also looking at unredacted documents relating to Andrew from the US Department of Justice. And of course, as you say, flight logs from London Airport. I mean, this is huge. And we know this. If you look at the sort of information in the Epstein files, if you look at the number of people drawn in across countries, across decades, this could be a massive, one of the biggest human trafficking investigations we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely ginormous. But of course, the way that it involves now the royal family and all these things that India was saying have been under wraps for so long. You know, there hasn't been a lot of sunlight poured into the comings and goings of the royal family, and indeed Andrew's position as trade envoy, so much of that was kept from public view as well. So not only is it expansive, but it will go very, very deep as well.
Let's whiz on to the Mirror, because I think they win pun of the day with their headline thrown out. And I'm just going to pick up, Zoe, on what you were saying there about the royal family. The royal family expanded because the former Duke of Edinburgh wanted that to happen. I wonder if this whole situation precipitates a further shrinking, if you like, India, of the royal family, because you hear that William has wanted the king as well to be proactive in moving Andrew out of the way. Do you think this is what we're going to see in the coming months and years, a slimming down of it, more of a focus on the heir?
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt about it now. There's been a lot of chatter about how this might have been a product of the royal family not being able to deal with spares properly, whether financially or just in terms of them being a loose end and not having proper careers and sort of giving them these ceremonial roles and pushing them into things they might not be appropriate for. We actually talked yesterday about how the king was not sure that Andrew was the right fit for the role of trade envoy. And it was the late Queen and actually Mandelson who told Blair actually a royal would be great for the position because of all the dignitary hobnobbing around the world that he'd have to do. So I think that there is definitely a question of how it's going to develop and how it's going to be pushed into the sort of the modern era. William will have a much smaller, it might even be limited to just sort of the Wales family, and the rest sort of ceremonial. We know he has an appetite for change. He's made that very clear.
Well, his own brother's busy elsewhere, of course, isn't he? Thank you both very much indeed for the time being. We'll be back with more after this break. Don't go away.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?